Good afternoon or evening, everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful day wherever you all are. Let's go ahead and jump right into Collectively Rewilding. And so today is How To's Community Outreach. And we have Miss Kandace here with us today, and she is in Shelby, Tennessee. That's the county where she is looking to get a veggie bus. That's what I'm understanding to be Kandace's main goal. However, if she wants to grow enough food to really service the community, the square footage on a bus isn't going to quite allow for that kind of interaction, right? And so she'll need a community garden or two to pull that produce from to be able to service a community. And so what we did while we were talking about all this good information here, and let me find it, is we asked Google a couple of questions. We began with the average square footage of a public bus, and that's between 320 and 340 square feet. Okay, now we averaged it out to 330, and so we asked Google's AI how, if we use that square footage, that 330 square feet for intensive growing, how many will that feed? And no matter how we asked it, it turned out to be about 1 to 2 people. So if they just utilized the bus to grow with, they could go to a neighborhood and pick 1 or 2 people that got in line and provide them with vegetables. And then that would be all they could do that day, right? And so that's why a little bit larger area for growing would be needed to become effective, all right? And so first things first, we've already shared this with Kandace, but let's go ahead and just share it again. And it is the Collectively Rewilding Community Garden Report. And it is super valuable for those who are looking to utilize a community garden and they don't already have one, right? I could have sworn I had that pulled up somewhere, but that's okay. We'll just go to Docs and pull it up here. Go in my search thing. All right. This was recently updated as of August 22nd. All right. I completely redid the formatting on it, added some new resources in here, and gave a little bit more fleshing out material. I added all of these miscellaneous resources in that are super wonderful. Farmers Market Directory, Bountiful Basket, Misfits Market, Falling Fruit, PickYourOwn.org, and Community Seed Network. Lots of great pieces in here, all right? And so this is the Community Garden Report that you can utilize anytime to look into things for funding some of what you're wanting to do, Kandace.
Thank you.
All right, and so here is that report. And now we're gonna go into that report because, and now I'm in the wrong place. Okay. Within this, it has an article that breaks down different types of community gardens. And if I can find it relatively quickly. Okay, I think that it might be this one here by the USDA, Community Gardening, Alternative Farming Systems Information System. No, this is it right here. 7 forms of community gardening. So we're gonna pull this up. It's trying. It may no longer be a viable page, but generally, all right, let's do this. We're going to go take this and take out their link portion here, make it more as a search on regenerative.com. Now, let's see if regenerative.com is even a thing any longer. And it looks like it might have been shut down. That's really unfortunate. All right, so then what we'll do is we will say to Google's Gemini or to Google's overview, and we'll look for articles as well and see what fits better. Descriptions of the various types of common community garden systems. And see what we can come up with here. How to organize, building a community, community garden management. All right, let's try this one. A review of the types of community gardens. Gotta move my mouse around. Hopefully they'll think I'm a human and let me in. All right. So this is a full text. That's really interesting. Let's look at what reading the full text looks like. All right, does it even have pages? Can I X out of this big old blocky thing? I'm sure that's all very interesting. And perhaps we should read it in Yarn Yard for Tall Tales this weekend. Social benefits, environmental benefits, of course, economic, health, types of community gardens. Okay. In recent years, research has shown that the increasing popularity of community gardening and the rise of participation have resulted in more diverse gardener profiles, varied age groups, and different garden typologies. This diversification, along with the evolving roles of community gardens, has prompted different organizations and community groups to adopt varied definitions for these gardens in practice. Therefore, community gardens can be seen in a variety of forms and functions in urban environments to address specific community and spatial needs. Understanding these different types helps to highlight how they can be effectively integrated into diverse urban landscapes, from small backyard plots to larger shared urban environments. All right, that's great. Here we go. Neighborhood gardens. Neighborhood gardens are typically described as public or private areas where community members collaboratively gather to grow oh my gosh, I was doing good there for a second. Where community members collaboratively gather to grow fruits, vegetables, or ornamental plants. Typically, the land in neighborhood gardens is divided into individual plots, with gardeners paying an annual fee for the use of their plots. In some neighborhood gardens, however, gardeners may work together on a single larger plot without designated individual plots. The produce from these gardens is usually consumed by the gardeners themselves or shared with others, and selling the produce is generally not allowed. Additionally, these gardens often feature amenities such as picnic or barbecue areas and communal tool storage. Youth or school gardens. This is definitely something that you could incorporate with your thought process as well, Kandace. If you get some of the schools to start having community gardens, they have more produce than they need, and then it could be donated to the bus. Okay.
Okay.
They do this in my hometown. The Four Corners region is where the federal government did a test pilot program for this, and it did very well. And then they started getting other funding, and the community kind of took it back. I don't know that the federal government provides that much funding for it anymore, but we now have like 5 or 6 community gardens, one at the high school, one at the junior high, several at the elementary schools. The charter school that my daughters attended down in McElmo Canyon had always had a garden, and it's really wonderful. So school gardens, another popular type of community garden, integrate gardening into the educational curriculum and function as outdoor learning laboratories. School gardens often integrate nutrition education into science classes through the use of schoolyards. Their main goals are to teach children about plants, nature, and science, as well as to promote healthier eating habits. And it talks about it being something that can go from elementary on through high school. Typically, a designated area of the schoolyard is used for the garden, often featuring raised beds. While a teacher who aims to enhance the educational curriculum usually manages the garden, some are overseen by volunteers or paid coordinators funded by grants. Okay. Entrepreneurial farmers market gardens. The goals of entrepreneurial gardens can vary, but they often aim to reduce poverty and social exclusion, particularly in low-income communities. Now, does this sound like it's kind of more what you're thinking, perhaps, Kandace? Is it a food desert that you're dealing with?
Not necessarily a food desert. It's more so of like I'm just sick of a lot of the kids not being able to eat. Um,
So the food is there, but they can't always afford it.
yeah.
Okay. So I do think that this would fit then, low-income communities, right?
Mm-hmm.
These gardens are sometimes referred to as farmers market gardens because they are typically linked to a farmer's market. They can be set up on either private or public land with the primary objective of generating income by selling produce, thereby helping unemployed residents develop job skills. So there I don't see it being quite the same, right? It wouldn't be about trying to give money back to the community so much as trying to get that food out there to the community. Unlike most neighborhood gardens, which typically prohibit the sale of harvested produce, farmers market gardens allow gardeners to sell their crops to local markets and restaurants. Additionally, participants in these gardens gain knowledge of basic business principles as well as techniques for growing and selling their produce. Still might be something that would work well for your whole process, right? The more you can bring the community in, the more likely those kids are to eat the foods that are grown, right?
Yes, and I would like them to know how to do it, not
Yes,
just
to bring them into the growing process.
correct.
And that will be a lot less expensive as far as insurance when it's not a moving vehicle to bring the children into the environment. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, makes a lot of
Hmm.
sense. Thank you.
Okay, I will do that. Research on gardens. You win. I'm in, right? All right. Let me copy this because I'd like to do this, but I want to still finish where we were. And we were reading. That's where we were. And we hit X that out and got into a certain point. Okay, neighborhood, entrepreneurial, residential gardens. Home gardening is a widely used method for food production, particularly for individuals who lack access to a community garden. Residential gardens can be divided into two categories, home gardens and apartment gardens. Home gardens are typically established in the backyards of single-family homes, while apartment gardens are usually created in the courtyards of affordable housing complexes and are shared by the apartment residents. The costs associated with these gardens, such as tools and water, are also distributed among the residents. The landscape design and layout are quite similar to other types of gardens. However, the main distinction is that these gardens are usually reserved for the residents of the specific housing community and are not open to outsiders. It doesn't mention it here, but another thing that can be done is if you have an area with homes and the people aren't making gardens in those yards, you can introduce the idea that people who don't have those yards could do the gardening for the people that have the yards and maybe would like the fruits and vegetables but don't want to do the gardening. And so unfortunately that other article that was really much better than this is no longer available. Home gardening, we did that one already. Healing and therapeutic gardens, that's wonderful. Demonstration gardens. Now this would be something that you would probably maybe want to consider incorporating. Demonstration gardens come in various sizes and serve multiple purposes, including food production, land restoration, and youth education. These gardens can also be incorporated into other types of gardens and tailored for specific educational objectives, such as showcasing native plants, natural wetlands, or composting methods. They are valuable tools for public education, offering workshops and training sessions on topics like composting, organic gardening, water conservation, irrigation, beekeeping, garden design, and carpentry. These sessions are often led by master gardeners who provide expert instruction on particular subjects. Tammy. Furthermore, universities and other educational institutions may use demonstration gardens as outdoor classrooms to enhance their teaching programs. it's important to recognize that a garden type categorized under one classification may also exhibit characteristics of other garden types found in different categories. Plot gardens, we've kind of already covered that, where you have a piece of land, whether private or public, and it gets parceled into individual gardener or family lots. Community managed gardens. In contrast to plot gardens, communally managed gardens are designed more holistically, with the entire space being managed collectively by multiple gardeners rather than assigning specific sections to individual gardeners. These gardens are also referred to as urban farms, and as they lack subdivided plots and are treated as a unified agricultural field. Okay, and so that's, a pretty good breakdown, but it is not in any way what I was actually looking for. So I am going to probably just download that as a full text. I've got this already pulled up. So now let's go back to this here, Kansas Healthy Yards, community gardens, allotment gardens, communal gardens, mostly the same types of designations. Yeah, I don't think that this is going to have that much great information for us. Let's go to USDA. Let's move to grow more community gardens and see if we can't get a little bit better breakdown. The People's Garden, Master Gardeners, Junior Master Gardener. So again, some great information, but not really what we're looking for. Oh gosh, I wish that article had not disappeared on us because it was really quite amazing. Let's just jump into Wikipedia, see if they have any better descriptions. It's going to be our last check to find. Okay, so this is going to be kind of important. Land for a community garden can be publicly or privately held. In North America, often abandoned vacant lots are cleaned up and used as gardens. It can actually be a tax write-off for the owner of that lot. Because of their health and recreational benefits, community gardens may be included in public parks. Historically, community gardens have also served to provide food during wartime or periods of economic depression. Access to land and security of land tenure remains a major challenge for community gardeners worldwide, since in most cases, the gardeners themselves do not own or control the land directly. Neighborhood, residential, institutions, demonstration. So no, these are pretty much the same basic ideas. And yet the type of structure that I was just talking, where you have homeowners who want to benefit from whether the aesthetic pleasantness of it, the food, both, or they just want to offer something to the community, the homeowner offers up a portion of their yard to be tended by people that don't have that yard, that land to grow on, and then they share the produce, right? They might even share the design. Maybe the homeowner has some specific vegetables and fruits they'd like included, or perhaps they leave it all up to the person who's doing the gardening, right? And so unfortunately, we are not finding what I was hoping to find. There isn't a nice, good explanation here. I do think that going through these might be worth it, and I may come up with something, and perhaps I'll write something up for us that will include some of these alternative thoughts that we don't have access to anymore, unfortunately, because that website, it looks like, completely disappeared on us. And so let's just put a strike through on that one until I can find something to replace that. And then I kind of looked at that already. So let's go back to our list here that we had started, because they have how to organize a community garden, building a community garden in your park, community garden management toolkit, and if I remember this, yes, a guide to starting a community garden. All right, as well as And if we close this over here so I can have more tabs open for a moment, we'll pull up all of the pieces that I had saved there. Okay. Now, oh yeah, that's why, because this had one from California State Extension as well. Yes, here we go. So here's one. Cancel. We're going to right click, open link in a new tab. Continue to site. That's just letting me know it's not secured. I have high protection set up through Google Chrome. And you can see it's ucdavis.edu. And boy, that's going to be unfortunate if it's no longer there, because that's being recommended on the USDA site. But that is a part of it, guys. These sites just change so quickly. So now we have our own list, and these are going to be things that are still there because they're listed here for us. So we're going to click a guide to starting a community garden. And all of these look excellent. Okay. Oh yeah, this is really good here. Now, it is a little bit intensive, but to do something like what you're talking about, Kandace, will take time and effort, right? Okay, so let's provide you that. This is a good overview, and we're about done with class time today. So I think it would be an excellent choice to come back together next week and perhaps look over. Oh, I'm just going to comment and so I can see it and edit it. This is silly. Going over some of these different options and the process so that we could formulate a plan for you about how to begin raising awareness and interest in your proposal. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. Thank
All
you.
right, absolutely. A guide to starting a community garden. Okay, and that's by, drive me crazy. Got that right here. Okay, that is by the Alabama A&M and Auburn universities. But we're not going to put that because that's a little bit too much. But we're just going to leave it as that. All right, and save. And so now I would recommend that you go in and you look into this document here. And what I would do, this is what I did with Megan when we were doing the 501c3 application worksheet, right? I went through it and I read everything in the pieces that I didn't understand, that I wasn't sure exactly what it all meant. I'll just show you guys. I highlighted. And if you don't have a highlighter, you can always just circle it in the regular pen color, right? It doesn't have to be a highlighter. But I went through, and when I came across something that I wasn't sure exactly what it meant, I just highlighted it or circled it in highlighter. And then if you want to do that, if you don't have a printer, you can copy it like this. And I'll just go down to 10. Okay, I'm going to copy it. And we wouldn't want to use this for anything public or any kind of thing like that, because it's not ours. We didn't pay for it or anything, but just to be able to show the highlighted material and say you struggled with, involving friends and neighbors, right? So then you just highlight that area that you had any trouble with, and then we could come together and you can just read out like an overview of what it is that you're struggling with, or we can come on and we can pull up the full document and go to the part that was giving you concerns or questions. Okay?
Sound good.
All right, excellent. So that is what it looks like to begin the process for not only offering this in your community, but the research that will be needed for you to make an adequate proposal if you're approaching the city, or an informationally interesting spiel to share with your friends and neighbors, the other people in your community, right? All of those different things will be a part of your process. When we have big goals like this in our community, it's just like when we're looking for free money and things. We're not paying for it necessarily, so it requires our time and effort. And we want to have our proposition, our proposal, our suggestion well researched, so when people ask questions about it, we can answer it and then point them to documents that will help them to understand what it is that you're talking about if they want to do additional research. All right?
I agree. Thank you.
Absolutely. So really great exercise, Ms. Kandace. Next week, we'll walk through what setting up a community garden looks like if you're able to join us. And then at the next week, we can either continue working on that if you think that's where you'd like to continue working, or we can start looking into the logistics of getting a bus with the community gardens. But really, that's almost as a secondary thought. You have to get the produce to fill the bus, right? And once you've gotten people involved with the community garden idea to begin with, and you're already starting to put that into the ground and show that success, that community involvement, that's going to be a better time to talk about finding funding to get a bus when you already can see the produce growing, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, makes plenty
All
sense.
right, wonderful. All right, guys. So we'll be back tomorrow, this Thursday, for Gardens and More Q&A, and that will be at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Mountain, 9:30 p.m. Central, and 10:30 p.m. Eastern. I hope you are all able to join us, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Please feel free to unmute everyone and say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, all. Sammy's dog.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Bye, guys.